So hi there, Aaron and Chris. Good to be with you.
Nice to have you.
Thank you.
Now, before we tell your story and before we even tell folks who Team Quality Services is, I think it's always nice to start off with the headlines. So could you give us a brief summary disclosing whatever information you're comfortable disclosing about what you've achieved over the course of the work we've done together?
Yeah, just a quick synopsis as far as revenue. Last year as a company, which we integrated ballistics, I think halfway through the year, we were really...
We started in January.
So we started early. We were hitting the ground running by June, I think. And last year we ended the year with 24% growth in revenue overall. There is a lot happening. We are a very fast-paced environment in the automotive world. But the inside sales structure has gotten us the edge, and we can continue to grow every single day.
Excellent. So 24% growth so far, and the growth is continuing. So obviously you're growing at a faster pace than you were previously also.
Much faster.
Excellent. Well, this is clearly going to be a good story. So let's start off by explaining to folks who TQS is, because that's interesting in and of itself.
Oh, sure, no problem. Team Quality Services provides field quality support to mostly Tier 1 manufacturers in the automotive supply chain. So those Tier 1s make the headlamps, the windshields, the gas tanks, and things like that go on vehicles. Them at the vehicle manufacturer that they send those parts to, whether it be a plant, Toyota plant, whatever, it doesn't matter. But we have a network of field quality representatives out there that support those Tier 1s at their customer.
Excellent. And you basically invented this space, if I understand correctly.
Certainly one of the pioneers of that. I was a Tier 1 representative at a car manufacturer and did that for one company, turned that into doing it for several companies, and then realized with the need of how strong it would be if you had a network of coordinated representatives out there that were all talking to each other and working toward the same goal instead of a bunch of independents.
Great. So I guess the problem you solve is that manufacturers don't have to have their own dedicated reps in the plant. They can essentially timeshare with yours.
That's exactly right. Before my model, they were going out. Each Tier 1 would have a guy that would get on a plane on Monday, travel around to the various customers, and return back on Friday, and that would happen over and over every week.
And I should have mentioned, Chris, you're on the right, and you're the founder and CEO, and Aaron on the left. What's your official title, Aaron?
Director of Sales and Marketing.
Excellent. And you worked on the build of the customer service team as well, I think, from memory.
Yes, also over customer service.
Excellent. Okay. So you're definitely selling a service,
correct,
not a product. And I'm guessing it's a reasonably big ticket service because somebody's buying a slice of your representative's time on a contractual basis, plus a bunch of services that go along with that.
Exactly.
And you mentioned before that you have an inside sales team. So you have a big ticket service. You're selling it with an inside sales team into a very traditional, probably one of the most traditional of industries. Was I right? Well, I know I was in hearing you say that you've transitioned to an inside sales team.
Yes. Actually, completely.
Yeah. We don't have any field guys anymore.
We have one business development manager who manages our 12 largest accounts. He is the only field person currently.
So you're entirely inside. That's amazing. So we'll get to that. But before we do, let's talk about what the sales function looked like before you met Ballistics, so the basic structure of it. And then maybe you can tell us how you came to be interested in this approach in the first place.
It was a typical sales model built on having field sales guys do door-to-door selling, trying to schedule meetings and things like that. That was their typical week. And the strategy to grow was always thinking that we had to have one more sales guy. And if we had a guy in this location, that would be the answer to all our problems. Then the ballistic model, we were introduced to that model. And over the course of last year.
So before we get onto that, what was not working about the previous model?
It was just limited based on one person's ability to spend a lot of time in the car, try and get meetings with people, and be a product knowledge expert all in one. And so by being kind of lousy at all three, we weren't good at anything.
So your salespeople would spend some of their time in the office, I guess, trying to book field appointments, and then they'd be out in the field trying to sell.
Sure. It was the typical things that you hear from field sales guys, that Fridays usually don't have a lot of appointments because nobody wants to have meetings on Fridays. On Monday mornings, people don't want to have meetings. It's the typical thing. So all of a sudden, just right out of the gate, we're down basically 2 days out of the week that we're not going to get any productivity done. And we're certainly not selling. So we're doing other busy work besides doing what we're hired to do, which was sell.
So I'm guessing in Aaron's team today, you've discovered you don't have to avoid talking to people on Mondays and Fridays? No. So how did you discover SPE in the first place?
It was one of our other co-workers who's actually a VP of operations. And he found ballistics and SPE, I think, through a TED Talk.
Yeah, TED Talk or YouTube video. I think it was a YouTube video of you talking at a TED Talk or something similar at a trade show.
Yeah, great. And he brought the ideas to you?
Correct. He brought the idea to me first because he knew it wouldn't go over well with the sales guy if he brought it to him first. So he brought it to me first and got my take on it. And I loved it. So then we looked at how to incorporate it. And that first conversation was with the sales guy.
Now, I'm guessing when you first read the book, you probably didn't assume that you were going to move sales inside, because obviously the book starts in chapter 1 with an explanation of our enterprise, or I guess you could say engineer to order sales model, where you have field-based BDMs partnered up with office-based BDCs, business development coordinators. I'm guessing you looked at that and thought that's what the model should be.
That's where we started with that model. But we also knew that we needed to have you help implement it, because at the pace that we would implement it ourselves, we just knew we would kid love it too much and it would take way too long.
Did you have a crack at implementing it yourselves?
I don't believe so. No, we started right off with using you. We knew better.
Okay. So I remember running the workshop with you guys, and I guess it was in that workshop that we started to ask the question, well, do we even need to be selling the service in the field? Could we sell exclusively by telephone? How? I'm sure we had that conversation. I don't remember how it went, or who was excited by, or perhaps less than excited by that prospect.
I was excited. The field sales guys are not really excited because you're all of a sudden changing the deck chairs, and so everybody's wondering if they're going to have a seat.
Yeah. And so talk to me about the transition to inside sales. I'm guessing, and we'll come back and talk about customer service in a minute, but I'm guessing what happened is we built an inside sales team and left the legacy sales people to continue operating as they were initially.
Correct. Yeah. It wasn't just one day you stop this one and the next day you're doing inside sales. No, there was some overlap. And that, of course, that was clumsy for a while because people weren't sure who was supposed to call who. There were some territorial arguments that were made. That's my customer. Mr. Outside Sales guy, but you haven't talked to him for 6 months. You don't know what kind of account management you're doing. And so some of those things were coming to light. So there was every kind of human motion and hurdle that you foresaw and what we experienced.
So talk to me about how the changeover occurred. And I guess what I'm interested in is the kind of the dynamic inside the organization once folks started to see that your inside team was kicking goals. I'm interested in kind of how the conversation changed inside the organization.
It took a little bit of time to see the traction, to see the proof. But once the proof was seen, the energy came along with it, especially internally. I mean, we meet as a team here at corporate quite a bit, and you could just see the energy and the belief start to build and build. It took a little longer for the field people, include not just the sales guys, but all of our employees who work in the field. But eventually they too, and at this point, every single person is completely on board, and there's just no denying the results.
Yeah, so when I was on site with you guys last, I went and hung out, as you know, with you guys in the bullpen. So it's a relatively small room with customer service and the inside sales team together. And it's not that noisy. It's a fairly calm, quiet environment, but there's certainly a level of excitement in there.
Absolutely. We love it. And when I take people in there, I have a conversation outside the door and tell them, here's what you're getting ready to go into. It reminds me in the Star Wars movie when it says to Luke Skywalker before they go into that bar, you're never going to see a more wretched hive of scum and villainy, but it's a lot of fun. So here we go, and everybody that goes in there loves it. It's energetic. There's music going. There's phone calls being made, and that energy is contagious for sure.
Yeah, you can tell there's money being made in there. Okay, so what happened to your legacy sales team? At some point, I guess you made the conclusion that it just didn't make sense to have folks in the field if you could sell so well on the phone. So what happened to the legacy team?
Yeah, we transitioned them to, in the ballistics model, it's the product knowledge expert. And so we transitioned we had 3 outside sales guys. One of them became a product knowledge expert for U.S. and Canada, where before he was just a small portion in the U.S. And then we have a product knowledge expert down in Mexico. So those are our only 2 guys that do that role. And they do some field work where they're going out meeting with other employees, getting the lay of what's going on in our industry in the specific car plants and truck plants where the vehicles are being made. So they're gathering industry knowledge as well as demonstrating the product knowledge when we have to send them to a customer. But honestly, those customer visits where somebody needs to see somebody have dropped to basically nothing.
Do the customers meet the representatives?
They don't meet the field sales guys. The customers really don't meet them anymore. They don't want to.
But what about the rep who's going to be in their plant? Who's going to be representing them in the manufacturer's plant?
Yeah, that happens quite a bit, actually. I just read an email of a guy that's heading down to Mexico because he wants to train his field rep, which is our guy. He wants to train him, get to know a little bit more about us. And so we will have him meet the field rep, but we will also schedule to have a manager or one of those knowledge experts there at the same time.
Yeah.
That's what we use those guys for now. The guy who used to be in charge of outside sales, we actually moved him into a director's role over an entirely different business segment. And so that seems like a better fit for him. And then, like Aaron said, the other outside sales guy who was mostly in charge of the Canadian region, we made him our executive sales person. So he takes care of the larger accounts, which is actually more a customer service role.
Yeah, more of a sort of an account management role.
Correct.
So you have two field specialists now, or subject matter experts, and you have the chap looking after the major accounts, the enterprise accounts. How does that differ from the number of folks that you had in the field previously?
It was it's one less, because the only guy that moved out, field sales, we moved him over into a different market, different vertical within our company. So he's running that. And then not the guy who does the account management, he isn't out field selling anymore. And the other two that were out field selling don't make any calls anymore. They are going out and visiting those car plants and truck plants, meeting those people, and meeting our reps and gaining industry knowledge and what's going on with product launches and things like that coming up.
Yeah. I think the thing that struck me when I was running the workshop with you guys was that from the customer's perspective, it seemed to me that there was much more utility if they were going to meet with someone in the face-to-face, in meeting the rep who was going to be representing them in the manufacturer's plant, than in meeting with a salesperson who was trying to, sell the capabilities of that rep.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
So what are how many people now in inside sales, Aaron?
Just two, and very actively trying to find a third as soon as possible.
Okay, so the team size is actually smaller. You have fewer salespeople. Presumably the costs are less, because even if you are paying them the same salary, they are inside, and you've eliminated all that travel.
Correct.
And sales are still up 24%.
Sales is still rolling, correct.
Yeah, and just to provide some context here, if you were a $1 million business, a 24% increase would be not that exciting. But there's a reasonable amount of scale to your business. You're definitely not $1 million business.
No, last year we were a $15 million business.
Yeah. So, a 24% increase that's real money. So customer service, Aaron, do you want to explain the role that customer service played, why it was so important we built that first, and what customer service looks like now relative to before?
Yeah, customer service kind of does a little bit of everything, but the most important task, to put it most simply, is taking the work off the sales people. The work like sending quotes, coordinating interviews with the outside reps, all the administrative tasks that the salespeople would do and are typically not good at doing. Customer service takes that work off of them. One person in the beginning who was fielding all of the customer service needs, and now it has grown to 3. And our goal by the end of this year, we believe we're going to need a 4th person. So our customer service team will be 4 people strong, and they are busy all day, every day. So they do a lot of sales activities. They actually are capable of even selling in some scenarios, because they field a lot of incoming sales inquiries, and then it's just a quick handoff to inside sales. But they do a little bit of everything, but most importantly, take a lot of that administrative work off the sales team.
Excellent. And I guess a day in the life of the salesperson would be, so to provide some context here, I think that if a auto manufacturer is building a car in a plant, you refer to that as a program?
Yeah.
And so what sales involves is looking at the upcoming programs and approaching the manufacturers who are contributing parts to those programs and encouraging them to purchase capacity from your reps on the ground.
Yep, that's correct.
And you're pushing sales opportunities to the salespeople daily?
Yes.
Excellent. So how does the promotions part work? How do you build a list of the programs, and how do you find the manufacturers who are associated with each program and figure out who to talk to when?
That was one of the key ingredients that we finally figured out in the last year or two. we actually rely heavily on our field reps when we're out in the field because their full-time job is walking the lines at these manufacturing facilities, and they're seeing vehicles be assembled. So they're coming across part suppliers every single day, every minute. So we've really relied on them to give that information back to us as they come across product labels or customer information. They have an avenue where they can feed that to our internal team so that we can create opportunities from it.
And do you have someone internally? There's a fair bit of data shuffling, I'm assuming, associated with coming up with the list of folks to approach with exactly what proposition. Who handles all of that?
Yeah, we have another full-time person in-house who works right beside myself and the inside sales team. Her title is program coordinator. Her full-time job is sort of like an analyst role. She's compiling Excel databases full of customer names, contact information, and she's organizing that and then feeding it into our CRM system, Tiger.
Excellent. So the salespeople don't have to decide what program they're going to be pursuing or which manufacturers within which program they're going to be pursuing. They just have opportunities queued up for them daily.
Correct.
And what percentage of the day would they spend selling?
70% of the day. So probably a good 5 hours or more just on the phone selling. And with the volume of opportunities we are winning, they do take a fair amount of time getting quote requests out, having actual meetings over the phone. So it's very productive.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Well, it's a great story. The last question is, actually two more questions. What have been the more notable challenges you've faced as you've been making this transition?
I think the economy was tough in trying to find candidates timely. We adopted this model and it started working, and it started working so well that we couldn't even keep up with it. So finding good people and timely was really tough. I also think we had an amazing implementer, and I won't say her name, but she is also very fast-paced. And her expectations were high. I could have never done it without her.
When you say implementer, do you mean the ballistics consultant?
Yes.
I was hoping you would say her name because I was going to if you didn't.
Okay, well, she's amazing. Her name's Giselle, and we wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for her. But she has high expectations, and keeping up with the technology and the sales and the pace was tough, and it was stressful, but it was well worth it.
Yeah, so I want to mention Giselle too. She's done a fantastic job, and she really is diligent. You know, she expects a lot and she gets a lot in terms of speed of implementation.
I agree.
The last question is: would you go back? And is there still any sort of gravitational pull left in the organization trying to pull you back to the old model?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. Excellent. So what does the future look like? How big do you want to make this thing?
Well, I got to build a new office to house all these new customer service and sales people.
Okay. So then you have to then you're committed to filling up the office. How is you kind of invented the space? Other competitors have entered, but I remember one comment I made in the solution design workshop is you kind of have allowed others to compete with you, and it probably doesn't make sense to do that too much. You probably want to maintain the lion's share of, you want to maintain a greater market share than anyone else. Did you want to comment on that?
No, that's just good business. You know, don't always keep yourself advancing. It's not always with the products that you make or the services you provide, but how you do it. And certainly going with an inside sales track has allowed us to better sell to the customer in the way they like to be sold to. And so I think by keeping that focus of always improving not only what we do for our customers, but how we do it is important.
Excellent. Well, it's an awesome story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us, Chris and Aaron. And I look forward to seeing you both soon.
Very good. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
You're welcome.